Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Joseph Ryder Anderson podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Anderson himself, and today we are going to be taking a look at the decks that have been winning rare battles. So we only have about 10 days left for 3 of the rare battles and a little more than that for JJK. But there's still a lot of good battling to be had, so you might be wondering what decks have actually had proven results. As well as it's just fun to see what's doing well. It can give us some ideas for our own decks to use moving forward in the regular store tournament format. And speaking of which, the new winner cards for July, August, and September are out. I picked up one from a tournament last night. I got the C2 winner card, and it is fantastic. So I highly recommend going out to store tournaments and trying to pick these up. There's 4 this time around. We haven't had 4 in a long time, but that's because in this quarter we do have 4 sets releasing, so they are honoring us with 4 cards, one from each of those sets that's coming out. So check those out. You can see them on my website if you haven't seen them already, and they're definitely worth battling it out over, especially with so many cool new decks and strategies to try out. It's a fantastic time during this summer to be hunting for your favorite winner card. Back to the topic at hand for the Union Arena Rare Battles. I'm going to be taking you through a couple of decks that were shared in my Discord from players like you who have had phenomenal results at Rare Battle tournaments. So if you want your own deck featured on a future video, then go ahead and hop on over to my Discord. I don't know that if I have a link for it. I don't think I have a link for it on my anywhere other than the website. So if you go to the www.josephryderanderson.com, it's pretty clearly up in the top. If you're on your phone, you click the menu icon, you can find it there, or you can just find it on the home screen. Join the Discord and share your own lists there with the community, and I'll probably highlight them in a future podcast. So for those of you who are tuning in on YouTube or anywhere else, head over to the podcast page to find these decks. I'm not going to be putting them in a video or anything, but I will be talking through them, and I will be adding them to the podcast page. So that'll be in the show notes. You can find them in the show notes in the description. You can find the link to that page that's going to have these decks on them. So big thank you to the folks in the Discord who shared their wins so that other people can see what's doing well. I think it's a super fun thing in the TCG community. It's a very competitive thing, obviously, to be going to tournaments and hoping to win, but it's always great to share what's worked for you, and instead of just keeping it to yourself as like a secret weapon. That's something I always do whenever I have like an idea or a deck that does really well. I always want to share it with people so other people can see what's doing well. That's part of the fun with TCGs. There's no manual, right? Like there's no manual about how to like build the best deck. That's something for people to figure out as they play, and that's part of the fun. So these decks, I think, are definitely, from looking at them, really well thought out and strong decks. So I'm looking forward to taking you through them. There's about 1 from each rare battle and then 1 extra, but let's go through them. So starting out, I'm going to talk about one that's the freshest on my mind because I was actually at the tournament where this player was at. So this is Vexton from my Discord, and he shared his purple bleach deck, and he did go undefeated, and I played against this one. Actually, I was really surprised and impressed with it. He went for something very unique. So this is the Ichigo Rukia build, which seems to be gaining a ton of popularity. At first it was all squad 0, but I think a lot of people are realizing just how solid the Ichigo Rukia pairing is, and this deck has the complete Rukia package. It doesn't go too hard into it. It doesn't have the 3-cost Rukia, but it does have that 2-cost Rukia, which is really solid, the 4-cost Rukia to raid over it. And I think the unique thing that this deck is doing is it's leaning really heavily into the 4-cost Ichigo. And I think if you're going to play the 4-cost Ichigo, this is the way to do it. If you're going to play that 4-cost Raidless Ichigo in the Ichigo Rukia build, I don't think you have to. I think you don't have to include it. You could go harder into Rukia, but if you are going to include it, I think including it at 4, it really makes a difference because at that point, you're much more likely to get this attack off when it's powered up as a damage 2 attacker, and having that damage 2 can put a ton of pressure on your opponent. Either it forces them to block in an unadvantageous way, or they take it and have to take it because they can't afford to block. and then it whittles away their life faster. So I think that this is definitely an intriguing strategy. So you have the raidless 4-cost Ichigos. You have just 2 of the Star Deck Ichigos, which I think that one thing you'll find if you are to go for the full 4, that Star Deck Ichigo, when you pair it with Rukia, can actually be really, really strong because you have a much more likelihood of being able to remove those cards from your sideline. You're going to have a lot more cards in your sideline because of the Rukia, so you have a much better chance of getting that effect off. So definitely good to include it. This deck is running 2 and of course 4 of the 5-cost Ichigo. But yeah, definitely a solid build. And the matchups were against Toshiro, Purple Bleach, and Purple Bleach. And I think that the real differentiator here was that playing a higher number of that raidless Ichigo. And this also helps it feel more like the Renji Rush build. So if you really like that Renji Rush build where you focus largely on just playing that Renji out, that this is what the Ichigo is essentially doing, with the only caveat being you got to try to hit that 10 number faster, or just get 2 of your. This deck does also run 2 different name characters, Squad Zero characters, so you can also just get 2 of those into your removal area, and then he'll gain the damage too. But it does have a very similar play style as that Renji Rush build, so I think people who are missing that playstyle can find that in this deck. So overall, an excellent job on this first place Purple Bleach deck. Since we're on the topic of Bleach, let's look at another deck, and this one was made by Milo. So from my Discord, Milo. So good job to Milo getting first place. I think if I remember correctly, he played through 3 rounds of Purple Bleach, so he actually went up against Purple Bleach, which is still the favored deck in the Bleach rare battle format, and he went up against that 3 times and was able to win with this Toshiro Kenpachi build. So that's pretty impressive. I think that theoretically it's not a bad matchup, right? As long as you're not going up against Squad Zero, the anti-BP reduction, and even against Squad Zero, because they have that, most Squad Zero decks are running that 5-cost Ichigo, so it can help there. But you have a bunch of these characters that can't be reduced by BP reducing effects. Interestingly enough, Milo is running just 2 of the Raid Kenpachi, so that's something to note. He does have 2 of those Shinjis, which is a really powerful tech in this deck. Otherwise he has just a pretty standard build. Very interestingly, he's running just 1 of the Yachiru. So he's running he's running 4 of the Yachiru that switches the Kenpachi to active, and I think that's a really interesting strategy. And I guess that also makes sense why he's not running more of the Kenpachi, because if you have this Yachiru, you can basically treat your 4-cost Kenpachi like a raid, and essentially because you're switching it to active the turn it's played. I think that's something to watch out for. I think most people are going towards the Yachiru that came out in volume 2 to kind of lean heavier into that raid Kenpachi, but I really like this focus on just getting that Kenpachi up and running and being aggressive with it. He's also focusing on the Shinji, the 2-cost Shinji, which can grant impact. So this is really feeling heavily like that original Toshiro Rush build. If you remember that build, it won a big tournament. It was pretty popular back in the day. And this is sort of like an upgraded version of that Toshiro Rush strategy. So really solid deck. Again, the fact that it was able to take down 3 different sets of Purple Bleach, 3 rounds of Purple Bleach is pretty insane. I think going for that really aggressive play is probably what helped make that happen, because you're able to rush down your opponent before they're able to get all those crazy combos off that Purple Bleach can under the right circumstances. Another card to not ignore is actually the 0-cost Rengiku. Milo's running Rengiku at 4, which I think is an excellent choice. I love Rengiku. When I've used her in the past, she's just so handy as like an early game kind of poker, and then the fact that you can bring her back means you can play aggressively early on without being too scared. You always pull her back and get more energy gen if you need to. So just a really solid deck, taking first place at a Bleach Rare Battle. So congrats to Milo. Also interestingly, he's going with 4 of the Toshiro special, so he's not going with that Kenpachi special, he's going with the Toshiro, which is a little different. So that's going to force a character to resting, and you don't need a Toshiro on the field to use it. But if you do have the Toshiro on the field, it's going to sideline that character as long as it's 5,000 BP or less, which is going to be any character in the Bleach format. So very solid deck. Let's go ahead and move on now to the next deck here. Let's see what it is. The blue JJK. So this is from Skiblone. I think I'm saying that name right. Let me just check again. Make sure that I am saying this name right. Skiblon. I'm not sure how you say that. I think that's right. But he shared the blue Sukuna deck, essentially, is what this is. So the blue Sukuna, looks to me like kind of like a pretty solid standard Sukuna list, really. It's going for the big guy, the big 7-cost character, which we all know is kind of like the guy at large right now. Sidelines, forces your opponent to discard a card, crazy stuff. So, and of course you could make it easier to play him via your 5-cost Yuji Itadori. But yeah, crazy strong. I don't think this is super surprising. I think most people know that the blue Sukuna is the strongest deck in the rare battle format, but also probably just by and large. So this deck, you're going to be seeing this deck at tons of store tournaments as well as, having it be probably the top deck to beat in the rare battle format. So super strong deck here. Runs the Malevolent Shrine. The only problem you're going to run into there is if somebody is running that Toto deck and can take it out via the Mekamaru raid character. But otherwise, that Malevolent Shrine should fare you very well in this format, and just help boost your Sukuna to scary strong levels. So very solid deck list. Good job, Skiblon, for that blue JJK Sukuna build. Moving on to what I think is the Black Bulls deck. This deck is kind of crazy. A lot of people are doing well with the Black Bulls in the rare battle format. To me, this deck is a lot like some of the other affinity focused decks. It's a lot like Hashira, Yellow Hashira, especially the raidless side. You only have one raid character in this deck, which is really what I think Hashira needs in order to be a little more viable. I think Yellow Hashira from Demon Slayer was actually a really solid deck. Just missing one raid would have helped it out a lot. And this deck has it. With Asta, it's a particularly strong, solid Asta character too. And then we have, it's also a lot like if you've played Metal Bat. I think the Asta reminds me a bit of Metal Bat, except for the thing that reminds me of him is that he comes back. You can bring back the base character. So this is like one of the stronger affinity decks we've seen though, which I think makes it really enticing to play. You have that Luck Voltia character, which is a lot like the Terrible Tornado from the One Punch Man Green Metal Bat deck, in that it comes in pretty easily onto the field in active. And then you have this Yami character who is essentially your removal. He's that 4-cost 2-action point removal character, just like the Kenpachi or Konroji, or the Atomic Samurai. All of these affinity decks seem to have this kind of character. But I think the standout character is the Asta, that 4-cost Asta that just like removes the nullify impact, which is kind of crazy. So if you're going up against this deck, really your nullify impact is not going to save you. And it's probably a reason to run less nullify impact if this deck's going to be, if you suspect this deck's going to be heavily played, you may not even really want to bother with making room for nullify impact. But yeah, super solid deck. I think the other thing that I really like about this build, and again, this is from Vexton, the same guy who built the purple Bleach. So he also went undefeated with this deck, and he is running the Black Bulls hideout. So I'm not super familiar with purple Asta, the Black Bulls purple deck, so I'm not sure if they're all running this, but this Black Bulls hideout is a pretty strong sight card. So it has a when played effect that as long as all of your characters in the field are Black Bulls, which is really easy in this deck to do, you can draw a card, or you can basically discard a Black Bulls card and draw 2 cards. So it's a free draw, maybe a free draw 2, sideline 1, pretty solid. And then you even have a character that interacts with it. So you have this 2-cost Henry Legolant character that you can use and activate main and just keep using that win plate ability for the Black Bull's hideout. So that's kind of cool. I think I don't know that a lot of people would choose to run a Black Bull's hideout in this kind of a deck because you're really focused on being aggressive. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think that's a really cool add here. This is the Black Bull's hideout site card. In general, I think people are tending towards playing sites more. That's a good thing. Sites are strong, and it's also a good thing for decks that can counter sites. There's not a lot that can do that. So it's really smart to just kind of, if you have free reign, if you're in a format that doesn't have a card that removes sites, you kind of have free reign to just leverage these sites as much as you want. It's another really solid deck. And then finally, I wanted to go over this SAO GGO deck. So GGO was definitely a major player in the regular store tournament format. I wouldn't say it was like top deck or anything like that, but from what I've seen on experts looking through the tournaments, it seems like a lot of the tournaments are being won by GGO, which is interesting because I would have thought the GGO wouldn't have done so well in that format. A lot of the decks, I think it just depends probably what you're going up against. My guess would be that this deck does pretty well against blue SAO because there's a ton of blue SAO that people are playing. So blue SAO isn't a particularly fast deck in terms of it needs to set up some combos. So maybe against a blue SAO heavy, a blue Aincrad heavy format, you can get your own combo set up and just demolish your opponent. Plus having that Kirito with the 5000 BP can be handy as a blocker. And that's definitely a differentiator because in the SAO format, there's no other deck that's commonly run. Actually, any deck at all that has a 5000 base BP character. So you can easily block out a lot of attacks. So yeah, kudos to everybody who's winning with the green GGO deck. I didn't see that coming. I thought GGO obviously was one of the best decks in the SAO in the regular format, but I did not see that doing as well in the SAO format, which is generally speaking a faster format than this deck. So kudos to the GGO players for doing so well. In terms of this deck list, you can see it again on the site. I think it is running that really solid 4-cost Yuki. And also, interestingly enough, they're running the Siune. I don't know how to say that name. Sorry. She's the Siune ALO character. Running 2 of those, so you can actually theoretically take advantage of Yuki's when attacking effect that lets you draw 1, sideline 1. So that makes her even stronger. And of course, she's got the nullify impact on a 4K body, which just makes her in this deck strategy pretty easy to include and to work in. So yeah, really solid deck overall. And that's everything. So we've taken a look at a winning deck, a first place winning deck from each of the rare battles. We don't have a ton of time left for these rare battles, but hopefully this gives you some inspiration for what to bring to your final rare battles as they start to wind down. And that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Thumbs up, like, review, all of that's appreciated. And don't forget to check out josephwrighteranderson.com for the latest Union Arena content coming your way. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you next time.